Hi, welcome to Golf FM. Quick test on the Taylormade CB against the Ping Blueprint S. I have a set of the Blueprint S and I want to see how this Taylormade CB that's just come out compares to it, because it might be a future iron choice for me. The Blueprint S that I use myself is 2 degrees stronger, but the reason that these are so comparable is in standard form, the Blueprint S is 33 degrees, as is the p7cb. And they both use a little bit of tungsten. They're both quite small, better player clubs, thin top line. And I just want to see if there's actually any difference to them or whether one feels better than the other. They're both forged heads, so on paper, there shouldn't really be any difference at all. They're very, very similar clubs. So in terms of looks, there's not a lot in it. And my own personal opinion is it wouldn't matter that much to me, but I like both of them. The p7cb has got a little bit of the old Taylormade Rack LT look, which was out quite a long time ago, but is in a very compact, nice club head, small, thin top line, minimal offset, thinnish sole. I've measured them both again with this thing, so we know exactly the measurements and how similar they are. It's actually quite hard to measure the top line because you have to decide where you're taking it from, because it's rounded, and it's especially noticeable on the Blueprint S that the top line's slightly more rounded looking than the Taylormade p7cb. But these are the measurements that I got. So the top line on the Ping is 5.15 millimeters, so basically 5 millimeters, as against Taylormade I got 5.26, so virtually no difference, both thin. The width of the blade, so how long it is, 90 millimeters on the Ping to 92 on the Taylormade, so again minimal. That's 9.2 to 9 millimeters. It's not a lot. Highest point, so the blade height at the highest point was 49.67 on the Ping and 48.46, so a little bit smaller on the Taylormade. So not a lot of difference. So in theory, the Ping is a little bit narrower and the top lines are virtually the same, and the Taylormade is a little bit shallower in terms of its blade, but you're talking tiny little amounts, which are hard to even notice. When you put them down side by side, there's very little difference. In terms of the offset, it looks almost the same. The blade looks really similar in size. The top line looks really similar. If anything, because it's a little bit more rounded, the Blueprint S almost gives off a look of being slightly thinner in the top line, but not by much. And as I've proved, it is very minimal. They're almost the same. So yeah, not a lot in it. Looks, lofts are the same. Both use forged heads, both have a little bit of tungsten, a little bit of help. Compared to a full out blade, they've got a little bit of perimeter weighting and a little bit of help. The long irons in the Blueprint S also have a little bit of a cutout, which just redistributes a small amount of weight to try and make them a little bit more forgiving. So yeah, really similar. Let's have a look at how they stack up against each other when I'm hitting a few shots. Right, so I'm hitting the Taylormade first. Similar sort of shaft to what I use normally, and a similar shaft in the Blueprint S. Same loft, same size of head, shouldn't be any difference. Let's find out. A little bit to the right, I would say. Reasonable strike. 157 in the air and 68. That was a good strike. 163 for 175. This is more, that's more what I think I would be hitting. I think if I keep 10 in, I wouldn't be surprised if they're more like that. 10 good ones. Yeah, I wasn't that well. I still went 157, 170. Hitting 10 good ones is a big ask. Average to not great. 160, 172 for a iffy strike is alright. Not perfect either. A little bit toey. He's done 157, 170. I think good strikes are going to go about 160 to 175, something like that. Decent strike. Yeah, 163, 175. I suppose it might be getting closer to 165 carry. It's an alright strike, but I kind of felt like it pushed it a little bit. It's not a far off line. 160 for 172. Good strike. They feel really soft, they feel nice. I'm not sure if somebody didn't tell me what I was hitting, I would think I was hitting my own clubs, the Blueprint S. 164, 176, apart from the distance, because with the 2 degrees stronger they do go a bit further. You can do that with these as well, you can get them bent 2 degrees stronger. I don't think it affects the bounce angle adversely. I haven't noticed any issues with my Blueprint strengthening them, that suddenly they're digging in more as though the leading edge has been affected and they stick into the ground anymore. There's no difference with that as far as I'm concerned, so I wouldn't be afraid to get things strengthened by 2 degrees. If, like me, you've maybe used something which was a bit clumsier looking, like the Wilson D9 forged I used for a while, so it was a bit bigger, it's a bit more forgiving, and went a certain distance, and I wanted to change to something a little bit thinner and sleeker and nicer, but didn't really want to give up the distance. So the answer was to strengthen the club and get it closer to the 30.5 degrees that I'd been using before. So these are 33, these two models, you take them to 31 if you strengthen them. So then I get back to where I'm used to hitting the ball. It's just not quite as forgiving, that's the only thing. That was a good strike. They do feel really nice and soft. They're fully forged head. 165, 177. I think it was okay. Oh, it's a little bit left. Leave it in. 165. That was a good strike. Yeah, really neutral flight on that. 163, 174. Right, I'll leave it there and hit the Blueprint S, but my feeling was that it looks really good and it feels really nice, really soft, so no complaints. And distance, pretty good, but let's see what it does against Blueprint. So, Blueprint S initial thoughts. Yeah, I think that top line gives an impression of being a little bit slimmer, just the way it's curved. I think it's a optical illusion because it isn't really any different. I was wondering whether the head size looked bigger, but it doesn't. When you put them together, it isn't. In fact, I think I measured it. The Taylormade was a little bit longer anyway. So yeah, looks good. Let's see how it compares distance-wise. Good strike. A little bit left, but good strike. 167 for 180. It's probably just because it went left a wee bit. Tends to de-loft it. Good strike again, tiny bit left again. 165, 179. Not that dissimilar, even going a wee bit left. An okay strike, I think. Bit straighter at least. Yeah, 163, 175. Feel wise, similar so far. Not noticing any major difference. Alright, I think. No, it's alright, 163, 175. That's offline, but that's my fault entirely. That was a good strike, felt really nice and soft, that. 166, 178. So far, really similar. Good strike. A little bit pushed, but nothing too bad. 166, 178. That's supposedly the thing with these clubs, again, over something like I used before, the D9 forged or p790, p770. Anything with a hollow body, potentially, the theory goes, with a thinner face, it can flex and give you a hot one every now and again. Now, in all the years I was playing D7 forged and D9 forged, I didn't really notice that, I'm being honest. Not any more than I get a flyer out the rough anyway. I didn't feel like it was an issue at all. Some people do, some people think it is. I don't, personally. But when you go for something that's just a block of metal like this, like a forged club, there isn't a thin flexy face to worry about. So you in theory can be more confident that the distances will just be the same if you strike it the same. And I think that's why the pros tend to go for more of these clubs than they do ones that are a bit more forgiving. Pretty good strike, I think. Yeah, 164, 176. The distances are quite consistent when I hit them properly. A bit right, reasonable strike. 160, 172, we'll just leave it in. Yeah, it wasn't perfect. 160, 172, that correlates with the way I struck it, slightly less than perfect. That's a decent strike. Are both really soft. I don't know if one feels softer than the other. This feels really good. I'll just hit them back to back at the end. I'll get these figures in first. 163 for 175. That was a good strike. Where's that gone? 166, 178. I think it was all right. High looking, but then mine are 2 degrees stronger and always going to go less high. 165, 176, so yeah, around about the target distance. It was a decent strike. A little bit right, but yeah, 167, 179. Right, I'm going to leave it there. Just quickly before I do the figures, while that's fresh in my mind how that felt, I'm going to hit the p7cb. That felt really nice as well. And then just quickly the blueprint. That's a tough call. I don't think there's anything in it feel-wise. Both feel amazingly soft, really nice. Okay, so let's have a look at the figures. As I suspected, not a lot of difference overall. Ball speed 114 off the Taylormade and 115 off the Blueprint. 19 launch, the same. 5.4, 5.2 spin, 5.5, 4.3 spin for the other one. Very similar spin. Carry 164, Taylormade 165. No difference there as far as I'm concerned, because it could have just slightly been the batch and the average and that sort of thing, and the strike weren't all identical. But that's incredibly close, 1 yard. Total distance 1 yard different as well. Descent angle the same, 45 degrees. So almost identical, and that's because of the loft. The length's the same. The head mass is very similar because I measured them and they're hardly any different. And one of the only differences actually at the moment is the price. It's about £150 dearer for the Pings than it is for the Taylormades. They're both very expensive. You've got quoted £1,399 for this for 7 irons and £1,249 for 7 irons of the Taylormade. Very little difference in looks, virtually no difference in performance. In terms of yardage, forgiveness, not really noticing a lot of difference one way or the other. I wasn't hitting either one of them straighter or always the same distance more than the other one. Possibly, if I was splitting hairs, there seemed to be more carries closer to the 163, 65 mark with the Blueprint S than there was with the Taylormade. But remember, I did hit the Taylormade first when I wasn't quite as warmed up as I was when I hit the Blueprint. So I'm not reading too much into that. Basically, I feel like these do the same job. They look really nice. They offer a little bit of forgiveness, and in my case, if you make them 2 degrees stronger, then they start going nearly as far, pretty much the same distance as some of these players' distance iron, like the p770, p790, and all the other ones in the ranges that you can get, i530 and that sort of thing. Maybe that goes a little bit further, the i530, because it's even stronger lofted. But if you want something that looks really sleek, really small, really better player-ish, and you're a reasonably low handicap player, these are not out of the question. These are not out of the question. They perform in such a way that you could justify giving them a go. Now, as I've mentioned, I've got mine 2 degrees stronger. If you're happy hitting them the distance they go, fine. That's your decision. But remember, you can alter them slightly. And you can also do combo sets. So you could put blades in at the bottom end of this, or you could have p770s at the top end to make it more forgiving in your longer irons. And likewise, you can do similar things with i230 and i530 in the Pings and the iBlade as well. So something to think about. Hopefully that helps. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments and I'll get back to you. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.